Hi, and welcome to DCO Graphic Studio. In this exercise, I'll be sharing how to, rather than creating openings for all of them, being able to pick specific items within the list to create those openings by using sliders. Now we can also use a different index input by setting an integer, but in this exercise, we'll be going over how to use the sliders to pick the specific openings for a poly surface like this. To start with this tutorial, I'll be creating a polyline here. I'll just create a polyline like this. Just a bunch of random straight lines at 90 degrees. And then the last one, I'll go to C, enter, and that'll close that curve. And then I'll select this and just move it around and move it here within the positive X and Y. And now that we have this curve, let's bring this inside of Grasshopper. So I'll double click, go to a curve component. And what I'll be doing is selecting only one of the faces to create an opening rather than doing it to all of them. So I'll just be going over the steps fairly quickly here. So I'll go to set one curve. We'll take this curve and offset it. So we'll go to offset curve and we'll do 1.5 for 1.5 feet. And it's going to offset it to the outside. So we'll bring in a negative to offset it to the inside. Now we'll go to boundary surface and plug in both of those, holding down shift to add another one, an additional input, and then I'll flatten the input here. And then we can take this and extrude it using extrude component. In which direction? In the unit Z direction. So we're going to be extruding this up by 12.5 feet. Now we'll be extruding a different boundary surface only on the outside curve. So we'll go here to boundary surfaces and we'll plug in just this one and copy this one up by holding down Alt. Now that we've extruded, well, actually we don't need to extrude this surface. We could just extrude this curve. And now that we have basically arrived at the same place that we did on the last tutorial, but what we want to do here is something a little bit different. When I take these extrusions, we want to plug that into deconstruct brep. This way we can get all of the faces exploded basically inside of Grasshopper here. And when you hover, it'll say 13 values. You can also go to item or list length. When you flatten the input, so when we plug in the faces into the list length and you flatten the input, and then we go to a quotation marks here, that brings in a panel, we can see that we have 13 faces that are created here. And that's how many of them are here. Now we want to just select one of those. So let's disable the preview on all of this, except for the exploded and deconstructed brep. With this one, now we only want to select one of those 13 faces. So the reason why we want a list length is because we want to know how many faces we have in total. This way we know that we can pick one from 0 to 12. We're going to pick one of those individual faces, and from 12 on we're going to have repeating faces. So let's go here to item or list item, and this will allow us to pick those faces. Now you can pick those faces and plug them into the list here, and now we're going to have so far one value, which is going to be this face. Now we can add more. We can go here to, when you zoom in, you'll get a plus sign, and this will allow you to add more outputs. So now, as you can see, now when we added one, it added this face, and we actually can go 13 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, and 13. So now we basically have one for each. But what happens is not every polyline that you plug in is going to have 13 faces. So sometimes, let's say you plug in a rectangle, well, you're going to have to remove some faces. So this is not the most useful way to use it. In some cases, when it is a fixed value, you can use this. But for this one, we'll bring in a brand new one. So a list item, and we'll plug in the faces into the list. And now we can change the index. So right now index is 0 and it picks this face. We can bring in a slider. We'll just say 12. And we plug in that into the index, and you'll see that we've actually changed it to pick a different face every time you change the slider. Now you want the slider to be between 0 and 12. So this is where we can bring in a custom slider, say 0 less than 12. This way we can pick from the start all the way to the end an individual one, and then rather than just picking one, we can pick another one by just copying the slider, holding down shift, adding another input, and then having, you know, like, oh, okay, now we have this face and this face. And if it's hard to visualize, I'll disable the preview on all of this. And you'll see maybe a little bit better this way, that we can change which face we do that to. Now, what I did on the last time was scaling it, which works, in my opinion, works pretty good. But now this time, let's take this and just offset it, creating basically a frame off of the outside face of this. So we can take this and go to offset, offset curve. Now we want to plug in these surfaces into plane and these into the curve. This way it kind of references that plane as the reference plane to offset. Now it is offsetting to the outside, so we need to bring in a negative component and also a offset value. So we'll go here to 5.5. So this will give you a consistent offset from the outside face. Now you can either do a frame, I think by lofting. So let's see if this works. By lofting the outside frame, let's see, with the inside frame, let's see if that works. Well, we're going to have to bring in a graphed tree from this one and plug this into this one. Let's see if that works. Okay, that worked. So when you graft it, it makes sure to kind of organize it to where this curve is with this one and this one is with that one. Now we can disable the preview on everything else and see that. Now we basically created a frame just on those two sides. That's one way to do it. Now I'm trying to think of the other way to do it is going to be to delete these. Take this offset, bring in a boundary surface. And we're going to extrude these out perpendicular to the face and then subtract it from the overall form, which will be this poly surface. So let's take this surface and go here to extrude. Then we're going to bring in amplitude. The next thing is the amount that we're extruding by, which we already have, is going to be the offset amount. So 1.5. Let's plug all of those together. We'll disable the preview on this. And now we'll subtract from the overall form. So difference, solid difference. And we'll plug in these into Ureps B, which we actually want to flatten, and the overall wall, which is here. Now we can disable the preview on the windows or leave it. And as you can see, we can change which one of those windows it becomes. Now you don't want to have the same one twice. We can always change which ones you add it to, and you can add an additional one. So I'm just making a copy here, holding down shift, adding another input, and you can have various one. Or if you want all of them to do that, then you don't do the list, you do the entire, and then you plug in the plane as the reference. You could do it to all of them if you want, or you could do it to. And here's the other thing, is thinking about it logically, in the sense that we see that this is one output and it's going to two different ones, but it's only one going out to two. So we can double click here, create a relay, and this come out to the plane. Now we can just change from here to here, and it's a lot easier. So these are the kind of things that you learn parametrically that sometimes make more sense, and it's kind of hard to visualize unless you get into Grasshopper. So these are some of the tricks that I try to share for the most part that will make your life a lot easier. So with this being said, that will kind of conclude the exercise for this one. Is basically picking any surface by using list item, and then creating an opening by picking the specific surface that has the opening. So thank you very much for watching. If you want to get a hold of this script and all of the other scripts, become a member on the site, and yeah, let's start a conversation. And if you guys have any questions or anything, please make sure to let me know. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.